I'm actually the one person he knows that does use the term bisexual all the time. This is how I describe myself. I've known I was bisexual since a preteen, since puberty. Right, the hots were a boy up the block and a girl up the block, and I was very clear on that. I didn't know the word bisexual. I was maybe 12, 11, 12, and just thinking, wow, he's really hot, she's really hot. And I don't know what to do about that. I know I should keep it a secret. I shouldn't tell anybody, but that's the reality. By the time I got to law school, which is now 18 years ago maybe, I just came out then. I had a new audience, quite frankly. A lot of folks I didn't know. It's kind of easy to come out. So by the end of that year, I was president of the gay lesbian organization, which I made change their name to the Gay Lesbian Bisexual and supported friends or something. And was very happy to be out. It was so exciting to me, again with this new audience. And quite frankly, I ended up being the school president of UCLA Law School as this out queer person of color. So being out for me became fairly easy. That said, in terms of my sexuality, I've been married. But I'm not the paradigm we normally think about. He was married to a woman and slept with men on the side on the DL, and and that's the story. That's the narrative we hear, which is true for many people. It's not my story. I was full-time in a 4 or 5 year relationship with a male partner when I met my to-be wife, and we used to double date and stuff like that with her and her husband. And she divorced from her husband, and I broke up with my partner, and we ended up together for 10 years. We're very out about sexuality and about sex. That's unusual, perhaps, but I think it probably happens more than we know, number one. Number two, let's take this up one more level. I'll only go another minute, I promise. You're looking at me. But here's where I want to go with this. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's me. So we're divorced, actually, now, for various reasons. I'm with a female partner, and we, for the most time at home, do not use condoms. Perfectly honest with you about that. I'm reaching all day long, creating policy at the city level. We don't use condoms on we don't like them. I don't say that in this room because you know what? I got just from an awful lot of folks who are like, I'm in a relationship and I don't use them at home, but we're telling our clients all the time to use them. I'm not saying we have to change that policy yet, but we got to find a way to address it better, I think. My general rationale, our general rationale, as we talk about it, she schooled me. She's actually an anthropologist, she's a professor. And she schooled me on we have to be really open about sex and sexuality. So we talk about everything. We make a decision that our outside partners that we have occasionally, we use condoms with them. So that's how I live. And it's a decision that we make. And I think that context is important. People need to be able to be empowered to make those decisions jointly. So that said, let me keep the mic going down. We'll go back to questions.
In terms of my own label, I don't like any of these labels. I don't know of any men in my community who identify as bisexual. We don't use that term in the circles that I run with. You're either straight, or you're gay, or, and this is probably the label that most of us use, you're a freak. and I probably accept that label for myself. I'm a freak. Given a variety of scenarios and circumstances, I will have done anything with anyone. And maybe I'll be able to talk about that a little bit later on. But and that's true. When men in our community get honest, not all men, but when a lot of us get honest, and we talk about what we've actually done, the clinical term behaviorally bisexual sounds really great and is probably accurate. But in terms, we don't walk around saying, I'm behaviorally bisexual. You don't see the brother on 120th It might be true, but that's not the label that you use. When I really want to get highfalutin, I might call myself a jodi, which is a West African word that equates with being bisexual. My preference has been for many years now. Sex with men. But I'm also a recovering addict. And my drug of choice was crack cocaine. And, in order to get one, I would have sex with women. The scenario that they list here, Richard talked about socially gay, identified behaviorally bisexual men, is an MSM who will have situational sex with women if a male partner requested, i.e. drugs are usually involved. That was me. If I wanted to get with a so-called straight brother, and we were in the ponytail kicking it, and the only way that he was going to allow me to get close to him was if we went out and got strawberry first, which is the euphemism for a female who has sex for drugs. And so we would go out and get the woman, and that would make him feel comfortable enough to let me, be part of the situation too. So, and I think that's the truth for many of us. So that's enough. I guess I'll probably talk a little bit more about my own adventures.
I'm gonna talk about the Latino community. That in this like the fear of rejection, but the point I see it is more than fear of rejection. It's how they feel about themselves. It's acceptance about how they behave, how they feel, and that's one of the complexities. Besides being rejected for their partners, their family, sometimes, most of the time, I think. So in the Latino community, that is the main reason: fear of rejection and self-acceptance.
I agree completely with what Vilma said. I think the major problem in the bisexual, because I thought was to be about being honest with my friends, my family. I have a hard situation. I had to confront a hard rejection from my family, my own friends, even my workmates. And it's a fact, you have to pay the consequence to disclassify yourself. Because people don't accept that you are heterosexual and one day you start a relationship with a person, male, from your own, from the same sex. And I think that's one of the points that make hard for bisexual people to come out with that. But about infection, I mentioned before that I think it's a matter of personal responsibility and not to spread the disease and protect ourselves when we have a change of partners. That's what I can say. Thank you.
I want to add a footnote to that. I think that the biggest complexities are around the stereotypes we have. And we're used to talking about the obvious stereotypes in the community, but not some about our own biases. When I first, my mother found a gay magazine in my bedroom, so I sort of came out at home, and my parents never talked about it. But, I'm thinking she gets the picture, right? We never talked about it, so I came home with a girlfriend at the time, but I was wearing earrings, and people would think I was gay, and that freaked my mother out. Not whether I'm bisexual or not, we didn't have that conversation. I was with this woman, but people in the mall would think I was gay, and I was a problem. So that kind of attitude was really problematic for me. That said, as an adult, my whole working career has been in the AIDS community. So mostly gay men and straight women, some lesbians here and there, some straight men here and there, right? Working in HIV. It's a very, kissy huggy community, if you will. I don't get a whole lot of, oh God, you're queer, that's so horrible. I don't get that. Honestly, it has been my experience. It's wonderful. I have had gay men walk up to me and say to my face, oh, you're getting married, you know that's going to fail, right? I think that was an appropriate thing to say. And I'm like, this in the work AIDS community. So I had more of the bias against me from gay men who give me that, it's a phase thing. I mean, it might have been a phase for you 20 years ago, but in these 20 years of my life and life experience that I've been out about and chairing all these LGBT organizations and trying to bring people together by saying it's some kind of phase, except that's offensive to me. So that's probably the hardest part for me to deal with.
Not just as a provider, but a lot of us here have kids of our own, and we deal with children from 12 to 22 that disclose stuff to us that they don't tell their parents, their friends, or anybody else after meeting us for 5 minutes. I myself have a son that's 10. My question is to Stephen and maybe to Charles. If you would have been honest with your parents, if they would have come to you non-judgmentally and asked, and your parents were to ask you, have you been having these feelings? Would you have been honest with them? Because a lot of the kids, the first things they said to me, and this was just last week, was some of us are close to our parents, but we knew they'd be mad if we told them. So, as close as I am to my kids, I wonder if I come to my kids honestly, and to the kids that we work with honestly, without being judgmental, would you personally have been honest with your mom if she wasn't coming to you the way that she did?
I love that question. Got a couple thoughts. One, I'm old school New York black family, and I bet you this better carries for Latino families as well, particularly, probably everybody, but particularly black and brown folks. Moms, the one you go to, moms all close, dads, it's just tough. Well, what is that earring story I told you when I was even 10 years older than that? My mother freaked out. Had her homophobic response. It was really horrible. It was really bitter. And my father was just like, I'm so sorry she did that to you. So we had these odd perceptions of our parents and what we can tell them. It turns out my mind was backwards there. So my answer to you is, I don't know that I would have. If my mother had approached me and asked the way you just said it, I think I might have said something. I might have to hear the question, said no, and come back.
Yeah.
But I may have. That said, our kids are saying things and hearing things which I could never imagine. I have a 20-year-old son now and a 25-year-old daughter. When my son was in middle school, maybe, I don't know, middle school, so it was probably 7th grade, somewhere in there, they had the transgender student come and speak to them in their class. It's a whole other world. So they want to talk, like you just said, they don't want to talk to other people around them. If they have an opportunity, they will tell somebody. We need to take those opportunities. I swear I'm almost done. One more point. The LA Unified School District, at least, I sit on the panel that approves materials. It's HIV, it's an HIV and sexual health panel, but there are so many wonderful materials. There are tons of them. There are piles of them. But the teachers have to ask for them, and the teachers have to have administrative support to let them spend the time to do it. I swear it's the last piece. Politically, I'm a political person. Does anybody even know that in November you're going to elect the superintendent of public instruction for the state of California? No. Start telling these people HIV and sexual health education is vital and necessary because you're killing our kids without doing it. Tell these people that. Call me, City of LA, AIDS coordinator. I will hook you up with the candidates to this so we can get that word out. It's a very high priority, folks. It's a big opportunity now.
The last question for the panel is...
Why should service provided to make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable when you had to do with providers yourself? Was there anything about service provided that made you feel comfortable as a bisexual person or whatever you define?
I'm going to answer the other question. I want to spend 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
I was 10 years old in 1967. I'm 52 years old. So there's no way that in 1967, don't ask, don't tell wasn't invented for the military. It was invented for families. And no, you didn't ask, and no, you didn't tell. And as a 10-year-old child, I don't think I was empowered to. In fact, I was not empowered to talk about my sexual orientation to my mother until I was 47 years old. And I was terrified. And I had been open in my community for a while, but I couldn't be open in my house or with my family. And everyone says, especially black mamas, they know. Come on, they know. Mama knows. And it took me talking to all of my friends, and all of them for 6 months encouraging me to go talk to your mother. It's part of you being a recovering person that you be honest with her and you make that amends and all of that stuff. And after 6 months of building up my church, I went to her and I talked to her about it. And everybody assured me she would be accepted. And my mother looked me in the eye and said, I did not know that. I did not want to know that. And I never want to talk about that again. And we never talked about it. My mother passed 2 years ago. And we never got a chance to talk about it. So even at 10 years old or 50 years old, it didn't matter. It was an extremely difficult and ultimately disastrous conversation for me. Which goes to show you the depth of how difficult a position this is.
We're going to have to